Hey everyone, and welcome. It's great to have you here. We've got a special guest tonight, Barry McDonagh from Ireland, and he's just such a charming, lovely man. I met him at Awesomeness Fest in Mexico. We had a really good chat, and Barry and I had some wonderful parallels, I guess, in our lives. We both had overcome anxiety using our own sort of natural methods, and we shared a lot of similarities there, and it's a great story that Barry's got for us, which we're going to be hearing more about today. So, Barry, I'd like to welcome you to the Stillness Project and to our wonderful tribe around the world.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Yeah, it's great. And I was thinking about that just before the call. We do have very similar stories of both having suffered from anxiety and panic and then coming up with really our own solutions to the problem. And it kind of reminds me of this saying, you can only bring people as far as you've been yourself. And I think that, what we're seeing now these days is a lot of people developing their own techniques, their own approaches and sharing them online, and it having a huge impact because, your own personal experience and how you deal with things is very important, and it can really change other people's lives as well. So,
It's
yeah.
such a great story, isn't it? When you can bring your own story, your own healing journey, and share that with others, it's just so much more powerful, isn't it? And it's just got so much more validity, and that's what I love about what you've done. So, I'd really love to hear about, what was the beginning of this process for you? I know you're at university and you obviously had an intense time there. What were you studying, and what sort of did you feel was the trigger for these experiences that you were having?
I think I think people who suffer from anxiety and panic attacks tend to be more on the sensitive side in general anyway. And there's a term known as anxiety sensitivity, meaning that these people are more prone to suffering from anxiety than the other people. They might be more prone to feeling more anxious when they drink coffee, when they're hungover, it might feel more intense. Bright lights, all of that kind of thing is often quite common with people who do have an anxiety problem. And I definitely fall into that category. And the trigger for me was drink, really, in college, drinking a lot, staying up late. So not looking after diet and sleep patterns and everything else. And then it just pushed me over into my first panic attack. And you never forget your first panic attack because it's such a traumatic event. It's so scary. You really do think that you're going to die when you're having that panic attack. Most people think they're going to have a heart attack. Their heart is pounding so fast, or their chest is tightening up, and they feel that they might suffocate. So in my case, I was actually in church on the Sunday after a big night out, and I was sitting a few in the pew, and then I just felt the sensations come on, and I just had this feeling that I had to get out. I stood up, went outside, but it didn't help. The symptoms started to get more intense, and I thought, I had no idea what was happening. I looked at people around and I thought about asking for help, but then I thought in the back of my mind, how would they be able to help? They might think I'm mad, they're nuts, because I couldn't even explain to myself or what was really happening inside of me. So it passed as they do. Panic and anxiety arrives in waves. Panic attack usually lasts about 15, 20 minutes of intense experience, and that's what happened. And then I walked home slowly and fell into the anxiety trap, which most people do, which is that fear of fear, the fear of the panic attack happening again. And it's a very vicious cycle to fall into because you're continuously monitoring sensations. I call it checking in. You're always looking to see how your body's feeling. You start to micromanage every part of your life and your body, so you move into this situation of trying to control everything. And I did that for probably 2 years straight, where it was continuous cycle of panic attacks and then into general anxiety. So when the panic attacks weren't around, I was left with this high level of general anxiety, maybe a 7 out of 10, and then tipping into panic attacks all the time. So what happens when anxiety takes control is that your life becomes smaller very fast. So I was this guy who could travel the world and do anything I liked, and to suddenly being afraid to get on the bus, getting my hair cut, any situation where I felt I couldn't escape became a problem. So enclosed spaces, socially trapped situations, I would always be looking for an exit, always thinking of an excuse. What will I say to this person when I'm talking to them, if I feel a panic attack and I have to get out there? And there's a lot of social anxiety that goes with that. It's a lot of, what will this person think of me, And there's shame with anxiety. A lot of people feel weak. for having an anxiety problem. They feel that they, lack a certain amount of courage. So, it's very easy to spiral into depression with this as well, because all of these things are going on. Your life is becoming this, you've got this safe zone that's becoming smaller and smaller, to the point where some people don't even want to leave their own homes. And that can naturally lead you to get depressed. But so it was quite a rough 2 years when I was going through all of that.
Yeah, look, I really relate to that story, and it's so good to hear someone like yourself talking about this. It doesn't really get talked about a lot like that in those terms. For me, those trap situations, I was a broker, and we thought we were masters of the universe, like Bonfire of the Vanities, and here we were turning over billions of dollars of swaps and bonds. And a big part of our job was sitting down at very formal client lunches in very expensive restaurants with, entertaining, 5 to 8 traders at a time. And, as my nervous system started to get deteriorated through the lifestyle that I was living, and the stress started to compound and my panic attacks started. And then, of course, it's exactly what you said, that fear of the fear of what will happen if I get one now, which of course exacerbates the problem. And being trapped in those client lunches was just excruciatingly painful. I'd find any excuse to try and get to the toilet so I could take some deep breaths and try to overcome that. I mean, the clients would never have known, but there I was, just in such a state inside myself, just trying to hold it together during some of those client lunches.
It's amazing. People don't think that people are going to notice, but they don't. You might look a bit uncomfortable, you might look a bit shifty. Inside, you're having a huge panic attack, but other people don't really get what's going on, or they don't really pick it up.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain to people that haven't had them, that sense of dread and that sense of fear that it just racks your whole body. It's excruciatingly painful. But I love.
Well, it's I say people who suffer from this get challenged in a way that nobody else gets challenged. It's an internal breach of security. This internal threat that the average person never really gets to experience. And part of the work that I do is showing people how much stronger you eventually become by going through this experience, because it is a very unique experience, and very, very powerful and very impacting. So when you learn to overcome it, you have this new skill set and new strength that the average person doesn't get, because they haven't been challenged in that same way.
Yeah, and you touched on something really valuable back there, talking about sensitivities. And I talk about this with my clients, that do suffer anxiety, and it's that wonderful story, The Princess and the Pea. And if someone hasn't heard of it, it's a story tale about, they wanted to test whether the princess was the princess by putting this tiny pea underneath all her layers of doonas. And of course, she was so sensitive and so refined in her capacity to feel things that she was proven to be the princess, because she could feel the pea the next morning when she woke up. And I say to my students that it's actually, of course, in the beginning, it's a challenging characteristic that we have, because we get these stresses that we feel a lot more than other people. But at the same time, it's a gift in some respects, because when we do get on the path to balance and harmony, we actually really are quite sensitive to the bliss and the love and the joy that comes through in that new transformation. So for my students, I say, look, now that you're on the path of finding harmony, you'll be a lot more sensitive to the bliss and the joy that you start to experience as time goes on. And it's true. I mean, for me, that was definitely the case as well. So yeah, it was challenging in the beginning, but it was also a great asset down the track as well.
And you can find, when you find meaning in the struggle, you can really turn it to your advantage, and you can then end up helping a lot of people. So it's a great, in a way, it's very hard to say to somebody when they're suffering from anxiety that there's a silver lining to all this, and that there's a purpose, and you can get great strength from this. Because when you're in the storm of anxiety, you don't want to hear that. You just want to end it and go back to your normal life. Yeah. But when I take people through the whole process and to the end of it, they can see, wow, yeah, now I have something, and now I have a new sense of meaning and purpose. And oftentimes that can be helping other people who suffer from anxiety, because you're guaranteed, if you open up about your anxiety issue, that you've dealt with this, someone close to you is going to be having the same experience or something very similar. And if not them, maybe then their partner. Yeah. But it's a huge problem.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, because now you've been recognized as the world leading anxiety coach, and you've trained over 70,000 people through your Panic Away program, which is just a remarkable thing. And you've turned what was a liability into a great asset. You've turned your experience into something so valuable by changing other people's lives. So how did you make that transition into, here I am having anxiety and now I'm a world's leading anxiety coach. Obviously, you went through a process of finding your way to heal, and then you took that and then you started passing that on to other people. What inspired you to find that technique, and did you go to any doctors? Did you use Western methods of healing, or what was your process to get out of that?
Yeah, so, and the experience and the techniques all developed from my own experience. I did study psychology in university, but nothing there taught me about this or how to really resolve this problem. Because what you're taught and what still is taught is anxiety management. You go in and people say, okay, let's teach you how to manage this problem, and we'll use distraction techniques and all kinds of different ways to get you out of this anxious state. And it's basically a form of resistance. You're saying, let's not have this experience. Let's put you into a calm state. And that doesn't work, because when you fight the anxiety, it persists. You need a different approach. And that was very much what happened to me. It was one of those rock bottom stories. I remember lying on the ground in my bedroom and thinking, I just don't want to have this, continue living like with this experience. And I've completely flipped my response to the anxious sensations that I was having. So what I really teach people in the program is, when you strip away the fear of the sensations, you start to get a result. So when you strip away the fear of the bodily sensations, and when you strip away the resistance that you're having to the general anxiety, you start to move in the right direction. So that's basically what I started doing in those early days. I started completely flipping my response to the anxiety that I was experiencing. And it started to unwind. I think of it a bit like peeling layers off an onion. It just felt, day by day, it felt better and better. There were setbacks, and I always teach people that setbacks are part of the recovery process. But then I was always moving 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And the progress I was making was so much faster than what the approach that I had been previously trying, which was that management approach. Now, you asked about doctors. I didn't go to see a doctor because I was afraid that I would get put on medication and end up stuck on medication my whole life. So I actually had a big fear of taking medication for that reason. And I kind of thought if I went to the doctor, I would just get a prescription and be sent out the door, which is, probably most likely what would happen, because I know for most people that is their experience. Now, I'm not against medication, but I think medication for the long-term use, it's great for a lot of people to get them back to work and short-term use and, get them out the door. But this over-prescription and long-term use of medication is another form of resistance and avoidance, because you're never addressing the real problem. People on medication think it's the medication keeping them safe, and they still fear the experience of the anxiety. So, and it's funny, I don't think I'd be in this position now of having taught so many people if it wasn't for the internet. So what basically happened was I started journaling about my own process and how I was getting results, and that turned into a small ebook. And the ebook then was getting such great results, it evolved into a program with book and DVD and CDs and then a coaching program. So it was really an organic growth from that small. Actually, it was articles online first, and then the articles changed into an ebook. So if it wasn't for the internet, I wouldn't have had that ability to get my voice out there and, spread it like I was able to. So it's been great. It's been a great journey, and I love it because it's such impacting work. If you can take people out of a very, very stuck state, if they're really in the eye of the storm of the anxiety, and show them that there actually is a way out of this. Some people think that they're going to be stuck with this problem forever. That's a message that is out there. Yeah. It's something you'll have to cope with forever. And I don't do that. I teach people that you can end this problem, give them the right information and give them the right support, and they can end the problem, Yeah. So it's that's really the journey. It's great to see people come out of it, because it's taking someone out of a prison out and giving them their life back, giving them back that old carefree self again. Yeah. And in fact, as I said earlier, it's a bit more than their old carefree self. It's got this new angle to it where they have become a stronger person because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to something you touched on there about pharmaceuticals, because I took a very similar approach to you. I mean, I was actually sent by a doctor. I did see a doctor because I didn't know what on earth was going on with me. I knew I was having these horrible sensations for a while, but I didn't know what they were. And I went to a doctor and he explained to me what was happening. And then he sent me to a psychiatrist. Now, this psychiatrist, he had a row of plaques on his wall and certificates professing how incredibly talented and knowledgeable he was in this area. And his diagnosis was that I'm a very stressful person. I need to take pharmaceuticals. And to be honest with you, I actually didn't know any better. So it was the most demoralizing day of my life, I think, to be told that. I mean, it was really a diagnosis that this is who I am for life and this is what I need to take for life. There was really no looking into, well, hang on, what have you been doing to actually get yourself in this state? What sort of lifestyle have you been living that needs to be amended here? What sort of imbalances have you created in your life that need to be balanced out? There was none of that really, and I was quite demoralized to be told that by someone that you have a lot of respect for. So it took me a while, a few weeks, before I realized that was not the path that I wanted to take. And then I had to find my own way out of it, just like yourself, which I really feel a lot of respect for that you've taken that path as well. But I do want to emphasize that there is definitely a need sometimes for some people to require those pharmaceuticals to stabilize a situation while we tend to the cause of the imbalance. And, I liken it to this analogy where we get a broken leg and we actually need to put a cast on that leg for a period of time. And that cast is such an important thing because it's going to stabilize the bone while it starts to heal itself. But if we were to get really attached to that cast and go, oh, I'm so grateful for this cast, it saved my leg, I'm never going to let it go. And I'm just going to leave that cast in my leg. Like, what was the saving vehicle, the cast, can actually now become the cause of you getting gangrene and possibly losing your leg. So was the cast a great thing? Well, it depends how long you used it for. And so it's one of those things with drugs, I think. We do have a great dependency on drugs. Apparently, one in 4 Americans are on antidepressants and anxiety drugs at the moment, over 40, which is just a scary statistic, I think.
And I can understand as well why people go for that option, because it's an easy option. It's pop a pill and make the problem better. But, they know in the back of their minds that it's not a long-term solution either. And it does become a crutch. And the problem with all these crutches as well is that it's all this idea that I'm not safe without this thing.
Yeah.
Crutches aren't just having a Xanax in your pocket. Crutches can be having a safe person with you at all times. It can be never going out without your phone. Always having this sense of I'm in danger, I'm in threat, and I need something or someone to lean on. So part of the recovery process as well is learning to give up those crutches so that you understand that regardless where you are, what you're doing, that you're safe, that your body can handle these sensations. So I often say to people, you're as safe on a desert island as you are sitting in the ER of a hospital when you're suffering from these anxiety or panic attacks. And once you get that confidence back in your body again, that you can handle this, that's when you start to really make progress and move into that phase of recovery.
Yeah, look, I noticed in your book and in your program, you mentioned that everyone can heal themselves of anxiety and panic. And I actually agree with that. And it was really nice to see you'd written that, because it's firstly, it just inspires so much hope for everyone. And I've seen it through my own personal journey, having overcome panic and anxiety. And I've seen it obviously through yours and through the numbers of students of yours and mine that have all managed to break free of anxiety and move into a whole new paradigm. I mean, we're not born with anxiety. Sure, certain people have a disposition to feeling stresses in a different way, but I believe, like you do, that people can actually live a life without panic and anxiety, and it's just about.
And I mean, it's so I would say people 20, 30 years with the problem, getting a solution, moving into full recovery, and that's something where even they at the beginning thought that it wasn't possible.
Yeah. But
they slowly started to see step by step, as I said, those layers of anxiety falling away and starting to feel more like themselves, waking up in the morning and just not having that sense of dread. And the only thing that stops people is if they stop following, if they stop commitment, because there is work. It's not like you can just flick a switch and you're all better. You do have to commit to the process, but if you commit to that, you will get results, as you stick with it, particularly through those setbacks, through those dark days when you think you're back to square one. You move through those, you really do reach a full recovery. Tell
us a little bit more about the program. You created this program called Panic Away, which sounds just amazing, and I've looked into it. It's just a brilliant program. And you've got this 24/7. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the highlights of this program, some of the things people might get inside that program?
Yeah. So the as I say, the core techniques in the book are: one, strip away the fear of the sensations that you're experiencing when you're having a panic attack, and then work on bringing down the general anxiety, because the two things are very related. So, and some people don't experience panic attacks, they just experience the general anxiety side of it. So you've kind of got two groups there. But the 21-7 technique is basically the 21-7 technique. 21-bit is the part.
Sorry,
of
21-7. My apologies. Yeah.
Yeah. In other words, ending panic attack in 21 seconds. And then the 7-minute part is about bringing your general anxiety down quickly in 7 minutes. But one of the interesting things about my program is that I don't teach people how to reach a state of calm, because, as I said before, that's in a sense searching for pushing the anxiety away. What I'm really teaching people to do with the techniques is to get comfortable with their anxious discomfort, to really learn to sit with their anxious discomfort and to process it that way. So you enter into a state of flow where the anxiety is unwinding, your nervous system is desensitizing by you no longer resisting any of that experience. And those techniques are really helping you to do that in a really efficient manner. And what happens when people do that is, first of all, people say, well, that's not why I'm here. I'm here to end these horrible feelings. And I have to explain to them that, of course, is the end goal. It's a side effect, though, of taking this approach. So it's very counterintuitive. It's very paradoxical, the whole approach, but it is what works. I mean, and anxiety is it's such an unusual problem, and you don't heal it in that straightforward way that you would think of just, okay, here's a problem and I'll tackle this by getting rid of it and shifting my state into a state of calm. You get rid of it by really learning to be present with it, really learning for it, letting it unwind itself. And that's how your nervous system actually cools off and calms down. As a side effect, it's not the direct goal.
Yeah, awesome. And so we've got a free audio that we're going to give away. And what would be in that free audio that we're going to give to everyone that's watching this tonight?
Yeah, that audio basically is about 10 minutes long, and it takes a person through the experience of when they're suffering from, when they feel that initial sensation of a panic attack come on, or their high general anxiety. And it's about helping them diffuse that whole sensation. So diffuse it and then get to the point where, as I say, they're starting to feel more comfortable with it without pushing it away, without resisting it. And it's a great audio to put on your phone or take with you anywhere that you're out and about, because let's face it, these anxiety happens when we are out and about most of the time. It's not when we're in our safe zone of our home and feeling comfortable. It's generally when you're on the bus, when you're in a meeting, when you're with people. And it's in those situations that if you can have an extra tool while you're going through this process to help you take the right approach. So when you're flying or any of those situations. But with the program itself, we as I say, I give people the information, but also the support. So like one of the things that we do through our communities is that we get people to tackle situations. And sometimes we get everyone to do it together. So we might say Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern time, or whatever time it is, we'd say, go and do this thing, push outside of your comfort zone using these techniques. And there's a great sense of everyone doing it together collectively, all out there. And it's wonderful on Facebook to see it, because you suddenly see all these photos pop up of people on buses or in meetings, or they might have a photo of them at Starbucks and they haven't been out of their home in weeks. So you just see, and it's great, all the photos pop up everywhere. And it's encouraging, because when you know other people are experiencing the exact same thing as you and pushing outside and doing something very brave, very courageous, it's a great motivator. Because I think a lot of the time the problem is that if you give people information and just let them do it on their own, they can fall off easily, because they don't have that support that they need and the encouragement that they need to really keep at it. So that's a very powerful aspect of it.
Yeah, that support's so important. And, it's great what you've packaged up and what you're doing out there in the world. It's really wonderful to see how many lives you're impacting. And I've seen some testimonials, and it's just there's a great level of support for what you're doing. And you're the master of calm. Look at you. You just got this wonderful exuding of calm, which is fantastic. So I want to thank you so much for coming along today and chatting with our audience. It's just been great to have you on here. And recommend everyone that's watching to click that link below and get free access to this audio. It's going to be a wonderful thing. If you've ever experienced any anxiety, panic attacks, or even just stress in general, Barry's got this wonderful technique that's going to help you overcome that. And so, Barry, thanks so much for joining us today. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks, Tom. It's been a pleasure.
All right, we'll chat soon.